Hey guys, welcome back to another Slightly Redneck video. Again, my name's Chris, and this video is going to be a little bit different than normal. I had something happen that has never happened in my entire life. I know it sounds very dramatic. It's actually not. It's a pretty good thing I want to show you real quick. I'm disappointed in the Joplin news, but look at that. Local Chief fans celebrate AFC title win. The Chiefs won the AFC title. They're going to the Super Bowl. That's never happened in my entire life. Now, don't worry, this is not going to be just a completely sports-related video. I want to talk to you about something else that kind of leads from that. I'm actually not a huge sports fan. I'm not a huge football fan. I am a Chiefs fan, though, growing up in Missouri, coming from small town, Webb City, Missouri. It's a football school, so you kind of have to be a Chiefs fan. You know, I just kind of grew up that way, always a Chiefs fan. I don't really watch football, but I watch Chiefs games, and that's it. Just the Chiefs games. Every Sunday we watch the Chiefs, not really anything else. And I've always watched the Super Bowl, but finally, first time in my life, first time in 50 years, I'm 45 years old, that the Chiefs have actually gone to the Super Bowl. And it looks like they got a pretty good chance of winning it. But again, that's not what I'm going to talk about this entire video. I want to talk to you guys about something else, something that I do anytime, a big historic event happens, anytime an important event in my life happens, any of those kinds of things. One thing I always do is I go out and I buy a newspaper and I store it away. I don't even read the newspaper right then. I mean, I might, but usually I don't, and I store it away. Now, I'm disappointed because it's not the main headline of the Joplin newspaper. It is just a little sidebar here on the side. I'd really like to get a copy of the Kansas City Star because I know it's got to be great big up on there. And we do have some places that sell the Kansas City Star around here, but I wasn't able to find today's copy of the Kansas City Star. So if any of you guys, any of my viewers live in the Kansas City area and you can get a hold of a copy of Monday's Kansas City Star and you want to send it to me, I will pay you for it. I'll pay the shipping, everything. I'm looking for a copy of that to store away because this is an historic event for me. But anyway, again, aside from the sports-related events, this is something I do that I thought I'd share with you guys. It is just kind of a neat thing that I just find it neat. I find it interesting because every time something big like this happens and the Kansas City Chiefs winning the AFC title, that's kind of a big deal to me. So I buy a newspaper and I store it away in a box with a bunch of other newspapers. And I've got a whole stack of newspapers here that I've stored away over the years. So let me just show you some of these kinds of things that, what's neat about this is every time something like this happens, I break this whole stack out and I just kind of thumb through it and just kind of look through. Oh, I remember where I was at on that time. I remember what was going on at that time. So let's see, here's one. When Obama won the election, that was when was it? 2008, November 5th, 2008. Obama won the election. I've got the newspaper from that day. I was living in Joplin at the time. That's why I've got the Joplin Globe. You guys probably know I wasn't an Obama fan. He was, I do lean more right than I do left, but still, that's an historic thing. I mean, that was the first black U.S. president elected. So I bought a newspaper. I saved that. Now, what's neat about this is I can go back through this later, read the stories, read what was going on that time in 2008, and you can kind of see how things have changed over the years. So let's see. Here's another one. This is when I was living in Nacogdoches, Texas. This was in 2005, September 2nd, 2005. And this is about Katrina, Hurricane Katrina. Living in Nacogdoches, Texas at the time, we had a bunch of refugees come in. So I can kind of remember that stuff too. It's very fresh in my mind, remembering that, Hurricane Katrina hitting New Orleans. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one. This was November 8th, 2000. The Hanging Chads. You guys remember the Hanging Chads from that election? So election hinges on Florida recount, if you guys remember that. So yeah, that was a good one. Let's see, here's another one. This was, let's see, when was this? 2003. This was March of 2003. Let me skip that one because that's not really. Here's a good one. December 15th, 2003. The day that we caught Saddam Hussein. That was an historic event in my mind, so I saved that one. There's another article about when he was actually executed. Saved that one. That was from 2006, December 30th, 2006. Here's one that you guys probably remember. War on America. This was from the Dallas Morning News. I was living in Texas at the time, but not Dallas. September 12th, 2001. I think everybody knows what that is from. The World Trade Centers. It's not always happy things that you remember in these things, but it is kind of nice to have this history. Let's see, April 13th, 2013. This would have been my grandson's birthday. So nothing happened on that day except for my grandson was born. So I went out and bought a paper. We'll be able to look through it later with him and show him what was going on the day that he was born. Here's one from the day my granddaughter was born, July 21st, 2011. So pretty nice there. Got cobwebs on some of this stuff. So nothing, I don't think anything fantastic was going on that day either, except for my granddaughter was born. And what else we got here? I'm not sure what this date was right offhand. This was May 22nd, 2012. I'm not sure. I can't remember what May 22nd, 2012 was. It was a year after. I think that's probably what it was, is the president. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I know what it was, because here's May 24th, 2011, which was just a couple of days, 3 days after the Joplin tornado, which, you guys can look that up. Deadliest tornado in U.S. history. I remember that well. It happened 3 blocks from my house, so very, very much remember that. So this one was a year later, the graduating class a year later. The tornado hit on graduation day in 2011, so this was 1 year later, 2012, the graduating class of that year. So there was a lot of fresh memories there. They still weren't even back in the high school. They had a temporary thing set up. What else I got here? I'm not sure what this was. April 16th, 2013. I'm not sure why I saved that one. Oh, here's one. This is from Nacogdoches, Texas, when I was living in Nacogdoches. This was February 2nd, 2003. This was when the shuttle exploded over East Texas. Actually exploded right over Nacogdoches, Texas, right over the top of my house, basically. I heard it. It shook the house. I remember that. So it's kind of neat to go through that and see a terrible experience, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it was kind of weird. Just brings back memories whenever you go through these things. Here's one when we got bin Laden in 2011, May 2nd, 2011. Got bin Laden. And then, here's another one. December 31st, 1999. Remember the Y2K scare? That's exactly what this is all about. So pretty neat. And then, of course, January 1st, 2000. And going through some of that. Anyway, I've got some other newspapers stored away, but I'm not going to go through them all with you guys. My point is that, this is, I think, a great way to just kind of preserve memories. And, they just sit in a box. They don't really get out and display it all that often. But whenever I do have something historic that happens, I go out and buy a newspaper, grandkid born, any kind of world event, big, news world event, something that's important to me, some of those kinds of things. I go out and buy a newspaper and I store it away. And then every time something like that happens, I go back through the newspapers and just look back through and just remember, what things were like then and how long, how things have changed and how sometimes things haven't changed that much. I just think it's a great way to preserve memories and to just relive some of that stuff every great once in a while. And I got this idea actually because, I remembered I was thinking about, this is kind of a long story, but this is where this idea came from. I'll shorten it down for you. My grandmother's house, when I was a young kid, they lived in a big 2-story house. And it was actually a house that was built around an old log cabin. They lived out in the country on a farm. Well, it wasn't really a farm. It wasn't a working farm. They had some chickens and things like that. But anyway, lived out in the country in this big house. And I barely remember them living in there. They moved out of that house into a little trailer on their property because they were going to do some remodeling on it. My grandfather got sick at the time. They just never moved back into it. It kind of just deteriorated over the years. And then it came to a point where, and I was, old by this time. I was, out of the house, 20 years old, at least 21, 22, maybe somewhere right around in there. They decided it was time to tear this house down because my grandfather was long gone at that point. My grandmother was getting older. The house was deteriorated. It just wasn't worth fixing at all anymore at that point. And so we went through and got a couple of things. You couldn't even get into a lot of the house. It was just kind of in bad shape. You didn't want to be in there. But we went through and got a couple of things that were in there out. Not much. There wasn't much salvageable. They'd gotten most of it out already. But there was this one picture on the wall I always remember seeing whenever we would go in the house and go upstairs, and it was Pearl Harbor. It was the newspaper clipping of Pearl Harbor my grandfather had saved and put it in a frame. And I always thought that was kind of a neat piece of history to have. So that's why I started saving newspapers. And it was right about, well, like I said, I've got a whole box of them. So I'm not going to go through all of them with you, but you guys get the idea. I don't know. Do you guys have any special traditions that you do? Anything that you do to kind of commemorate things, remember things, or am I the only one out there that does that? I just thought I'd share that with you guys. And, one last thing, just before I go Chiefs. Thanks for watching, guys. God bless each and every one of you, and hopefully we'll see you on this week's live broadcast when we do the drawing for the free eggs. Take care.